Welcome to the Research Works podcast, live from the European Academy of Childhood Disability Conference 2024 in Bruges, Belgium. Join us for interviews with keynote speakers, world-renowned researchers and clinicians, and behind-the-scenes stories from one of the great paediatric conferences in the world.
Hello everyone, we have another wonderful episode, a great follow-on from what we spoke about last year. So welcome, let me say this, I'm going to preface it and say sorry, but Atefeh Taghizadeh, no, I said it wrong. No, you can say it.
Good.
Oh, it was good. Yeah.
Well done.
And Brian Hoare, hello, welcome. I can say your name.
Not everyone can though.
Oh, really?
No.
What do you get? What variations?
A bit scared of saying the surname, so they'll pronounce the A, so Hoare, but it is Hoare.
Oh, okay. It didn't even cross my mind. But today we will be following on from something that we spoke about last year, and it's part of your PhD, and Brian's your supervisor. So this is an instructional course you're presenting here tomorrow, and it's called A New Tool to Support the Implementation of Motor Learning in Therapy for Children with Cerebral Palsy. All things dear to my heart. We need more of things like this. But before we get into it, Brian, can you give us a bit of an overview about what this whole instructional course is about?
Yeah, so the course itself is, Atefeh spent the last 4 to 5 years developing a tool known as the Upper Limb Motor Learning Strategy Rating Tool. And perhaps it's quick and easy to say what the instructional course is about, which is really just teaching people about what we've done and the psychometrics of the tool and a glimpse into how it can be used clinically. Yeah. And we also think in future research. But perhaps the sort of very brief background of why we developed the tool. Yeah. And I think it's always the why that's most important. So as we know, there's been a very big change over the last 20 years into what was previously done from a therapy point of view and the theories that guide practice and therefore the approaches that were used. So I think motor learning is still something that is a complex area. And I think Anne Gentile sums it up beautifully in one of her papers. It's not just a different way of sort of doing things. It's actually a different way of thinking compared to previous theories of practice. Yeah. So what we're trying to do, and we recognise the gap, we have all these evidence-based interventions which are all based on motor learning, but what actually is it and how do clinicians do it and what are the strategies, what are their names, when should you use them, why should you use them? And so this is what we're trying to do, build a tool and a package of resources, which I'll let Atefeh talk about more, but a package of resources to support clinicians and therefore the secondary effect is to be better coaches because all the models are coaching models and therefore parents being better able to support their kids in skill acquisition.
It meets such an important need and you're absolutely right. This shift to these motor learning strategies, it's not as simple as people might think it is. Like you can talk about the active ingredients and I talk about them a lot because it's the easiest way to maybe describe what it looks like. Why do you think it's such a big shift though maybe it's worth because again, it's part of the why. What were we doing before implementing motor learning? Like, why is there such a shift here?
I mean, again, don't want to dominate the conversation, but what I will say, and because this is something I talk a lot about on my courses, I think it stems from really the theories of motor control upon which previous approaches were based upon. So hierarchical and reflexive theories of motor control and how you learn to do things are actually no longer valid. And science has proven that. And so then what has demonstrated, and this is not just for kids with CP or adults with brain injuries, every human on the planet, whether you're a golf player and a professional soccer player, you'll use the same strategies of how to acquire new skills and generalise and transfer those. So it stems from the original concepts of how you learn that then went into formulations of models of therapy and then those models dominated the field because there wasn't necessarily other ways of doing things. And I think if you look at now in 2024 and even in the noughties, you started to see these motor learning based therapies really actually be the ones that come out in the research as being the ones that are effective for skill acquisition. So that's where I think there's an expectation by a lot of researchers, just go and do this. Well, how do you know what to do when ultimately we weren't taught it at university? No. We're not taught it on the job because the old ways of doing things still dominate. True.
Yeah. And when you say reflexive, they're completely different to volitional control of movement. They don't interact in that way. Like they're such different thinkings, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we can delve into that a little bit more. I feel like I could talk about that for a long time, but let's.
Yeah. I mean, there's the hierarchical,
Yeah.
but now what we know is the sort of central nervous system is heterarchical. So it's not controlled by the higher centres.
Yeah.
All these centres interact with each other and especially systems theory. It's not just about the brain, it's about the interaction with the environment and what you're doing, so the task or the occupation.
Absolutely. Yep. So this journey of 4 and 5 years, it's a big journey, but a lot of work gets done in that time.
Yeah.
So talk me through about this tool, maybe just update everyone who might not have remembered what we spoke about last year, and then probably a few things have shifted since then too.
Yeah.
Talk me more about this tool, and let's also just delve into what's actually in it.
Yeah. The tool actually includes a training program, a manual, comprehensive manual, and a self-reflection checklist. The training program is to educate clinicians about the motor learning theories and their strategies, but it doesn't only include what strategy clinicians need to implement, but also the rationale behind their implementation, like why, when, and how they should implement. And also it includes video-based scenarios of different models of upper limb therapy, 3 different models, goal-directed training, bimanual therapy, and modified constraint-induced movement therapy.
Right.
And also the manual includes a very comprehensive background information, again, clinical example, and supporting reference from the literature.
Amazing.
For each of the strategies. And the checklist also is like a self-reflection checklist. Includes all the essential motor learning strategies and a kind of categorical rating, which indicates the presence or absence of motor learning strategy, just as a framework for clinicians to reflect on what they did in their practice.
Right, so it's very comprehensive in terms of the different ways. I mean, it's adult learning, it sounds like there. Tell me a bit about sort of some of the things, or maybe some examples of what's in this tool to help someone navigate through a session. Like, what are some of the things that they would go, oh, I need to implement this, which is really different to what I've done before. Can you give me some examples of what's in there?
I think we can absolutely, probably with this work, allow individual clinicians to understand the errors that they're making in terms of, if I didn't do that, or if I did this, that would have resulted in that child learning that action or that skill.
Okay.
And one of the best examples is the timing of feedback. So, for instance, there's 63 different strategies that we've identified. We'll probably adjust it with the final version.
Okay.
But it's a lot, and we don't want to make it more complex. We want to make it simple. But one of probably the biggest errors is to give a child a prompt during task performance.
Okay.
Why does that not work? So, for instance, hold the paper. Johnny, hold the paper while Johnny's trying to draw. He's not able to selectively attend to holding the paper and drawing at the same time. So the best time perhaps to give feedback is before the task commences, when you know what the error is going to be made. So talk about, and it's all sort of verbal mediation. So what, especially with verbal kids, is what do you need to do? Or you might, in your modelling, demonstrate the error and expect them to then say to you, oh, silly Brian, you need to hold the paper. So the big one is the content of feedback also. So that's the timing. And I think the error is always give it when you see the child do something rather than actually before, or it's also terminal feedback. Then it's the content, and that's telling kids what to do. And it's the biggest error.
Right.
Because you tell a child what to do, they'll do it. There's no conscious awareness of why they did that. And so they'll keep persistently making the error. So if you ask a question, where does this go? What do you need to do? And it might even just be a clearing of the throat to bring about a selective attention to the error. They look at it, attend to it, and correct. And the likelihood chances of them making the same error is much less.
Wow.
So I think that's what we're sort of trying to achieve, is that coaching around especially when parents are talking to their kids. The best time to do this is then, and the best way to do that is then based on the evidence around motor learning.
That's so powerful. So I mean, I know how many times I've been on a home visit, and when you're in the session sometimes, and all the family members there, they're like, lefty, use your left hand. They're like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on here right now. And this poor kid is trying to do something, and then their tone is really kicking in, and then everyone's hands are on them to try to open the hand, and it becomes this. How's the child learning? And it's there's a very, very good proverb, which unknown where it comes from, but basically if you've told a child to do something 1,000 times, it's not the child that's the slow learner. So the case or the example you just gave of use lefty, use righty, my philosophy, and I share with families, if you have to tell your child to use their upper limb where I'm not doing my job well, because no child with hemiplegia should be told or need, that should be of their own volition and based on their sort of perceptual skills of going, I know what to do here. Yeah. And if the task doesn't require it, because it's one-handed, why would they use their It really allows you to really step back, doesn't it, to think it through. And like you said, how we learn as well, because I know if someone were to talk to me constantly as I'm trying to learn a new skill, I'll probably want to hit them. In all fairness. So you spoke a little bit before about psychometric properties. Let's touch on that, because I always think that's really important to know that a tool is doing what we think it should be doing.
We evaluated the content validity, and then after that we evaluated both inter and inter-rater reliability with 21 Australian-based clinicians. And we embedded the evaluation process in our 3 days online training program. We educated them about the tool, and we trained them how they should use the checklist and the tool.
I see.
And and evaluated the inter and inter-rater reliability with 2 weeks apart. And the result was excellent. And after that, we had interviews with a sample of 7 clinicians attended this in this training program. Around 4 to 6 weeks later, after this training program, who they agreed to use the tool for 1 month. And and again, the result was fantastic. We heard a lot of good and positive feedback from clinicians.
That's wonderful. That's what we want.
The tools, in their perspective, really help them to self-reflect on their practice, help to improve their clinical reasoning. Improve their knowledge and their skills. And also interesting was that it helped clinicians around the communication with parents and caregivers, and improve the family and clinicians partnership.
It's the whole package, really, isn't it? It's not about just what you do in a session. It's about what families get to do. It's the whole context.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you think a lot about, maybe back to the point you were making before, Brian, about, as clinicians, how we've been trained. We're not really trained to be coaches. When you think about sports, music teachers, I say music teachers because I was one, and there's ways of teaching. There's ways of coaching someone through something, and there's good coaches.
That's what I was going to say.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you think
the
analogy I give on the sort of on courses is you could have the up-and-coming 16-year-old who's super motivated and coaching the junior team. Or you could have, again, the Premier League coach for some reason volunteers to the junior team, who's probably going to end up with better skills and winning more games.
That's right. That's right.
So the quality of coaching is critical.
Yeah. And it sounds like this is almost like a, if you want to be a good coach, this is the course to do. And it sounds like already so is the way that this model works is if you can do the course, which is it going to be a 3-day course? Is that what you're thinking, or?
I think ultimately what we want to be able to do is have sort of multimodal access. So it might be a fully adult learning principle, sort of take yourself through the modules.
Right.
This is where we're up to at the moment. Atefeh and I are sort of working out. We want to refine it first, not build it and then have to change it. So and probably do some face-to-face if people want that, but also a bit of live teaching. And and then develop sort of, I think, not refreshers, but advanced courses where you've got people who have gone and used it and then want to discuss in their practice and in with their colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is meeting such a need, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I can imagine already the process that you've gone through, it's very rigorous. You know, you haven't just, I think the big gap in a lot of the work that I'm hearing at the moment, and we spoke about this last year, didn't we? It's just, where can we do these courses? Where can we get that? And if we're not offering them, there'll be other sources that will offer them, which are very prescriptive, and they're very much, probably quite reflexive in nature, the hierarchical methodology of thinking, and it's very recipe driven.
Yeah.
But we really want people to be good coaches, which is problem solving, and it's active, dynamic, and it changes with the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other big aim is what we want to do is move the focus away from intensity.
Yeah.
Because it makes me furious because it dumbs down what we do as clinicians.
Yeah.
You just got to do a lot. And get back to the coaching analogy.
Yeah.
You could have a really poor coach and do a lot of something and not get a lot of outcomes.
Oh, completely agree.
You could have someone who's really good, knows what they're doing, do a little bit, and you know who's going to get better outcomes. So we really want to make sure that, because motor learning is so much more than just dosage.
That's right.
You can make every error.
Yeah.
As I said before, you can tell the child what to do. You can keep doing that.
Yeah.
And they're not going to learn. They're going to keep making the same errors. They're going to be reliant on someone telling them what to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. We don't want them to be reliant on us. And Ginny Pallick says it nicely. She says it in a nice New York way. And Ginny, I know you're listening. She'll be like, the sum of nothing is still nothing.
Yeah, precisely.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Like, we want to do the right things, and it's ethical. It's what we should be doing as clinicians.
Yeah.
Clinicians really needs to know why they are doing things.
Yeah, and we want to. It all comes from a heart of wanting the best.
Yeah.
Where everyone is very well intended about this. We just need to have the resources to help people with that. Yeah.
And it's fascinating that it's behaviour, because you think instinct should end up guiding the best way of doing something. But I think in this field, in fact, instinct does the opposite. So you want to tell a child to do something. You want to jump in and do it for them. You want
involved.
So it's actually inhibition really of our instinctive responses, which we think are helping, but often actually hindering.
Yeah. Well, my number one rule is, if you feel like you want to say something, don't.
Yeah.
Just stop yourself. Like, if you want to have a conversation, have it later. You want to be a little bit quiet, and that's actually really hard for a lot of us, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Atefeh watched a lot of videos, and I mean, that's how I've got a better therapist. And you just sit there saying, why did I say that? I didn't need to say it.
It's painful to watch, isn't it? Yeah.
But that's why we've got the self-reflection component. We think it's critical.
Important. To self-reflect on your practice.
Yes. Well done. Congratulations on this work. We could talk about this for so long, because this is obviously something we're all very passionate about. But let's make sure we keep in touch with this. And as soon as this is available, we'll help spread the word about it, because we need more things like this. So congratulations on your work.
Thanks, Dana.
Yeah, thank you. To all of our listeners, I hope that was as inspiring and exciting for you as it was for me. But do stay tuned. We've got lots more episodes coming up too. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.